The sun had long set over the silent expanse of the galaxy, casting the space station in a dark, eerie glow. Alex, a young technician with a quiet life, had been assigned to this abandoned station for the night, a routine maintenance check that had been given to him as part of his duties. There was nothing special about this mission. No grand adventure, just him and the hum of the machinery that had kept the station alive for centuries. It was supposed to be a normal evening, just another quiet night among the stars. The corridors of the station were narrow and dimly lit. The walls, once sleek and polished, now looked worn and battered, as though time itself had forgotten about this place. As Alex wandered deeper into the heart of the station, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. His footsteps echoed eerily in the long, empty hallways, the silence pressing against him like a heavy weight. But despite the coldness around him, Alex couldn't help but feel drawn to a particular part of the station, an area that was usually off limits. A strange, unexplained pull seemed to guide him towards it. As he turned the corner, he noticed a door slightly ajar, something he hadn't seen before during his previous visits. Normally, the station's security system would have locked this room, but now it was open. Curiosity got the better of him. He moved cautiously towards the door, a sense of unease rising in his chest. What was behind it? Why had this room been left unlocked? He pushed the door open, and what he saw inside left him speechless. There, standing in the dim glow of the room, was a figure that could only be described as otherworldly. Her long, flowing pink hair cascaded down her back, glowing faintly in the darkness. Her eyes, large and glowing, locked onto Alex's with an intensity that almost made him freeze in place. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen before. Alien, yes, but more than that, she radiated an aura of royalty and power. The woman was unlike any human he had ever encountered, her skin a delicate shade of pale blue, dotted with shimmering freckles that seemed to twinkle like stars. Her ears were pointed like those of a mystical elf, and her features were sharp yet beautiful, with an ethereal grace that seemed impossible in the harshness of space. She was an alien, of that, Alex was certain. But who was she? Why was she here? Who are you? Alex asked, his voice trembling despite his attempts to sound calm. The alien princess took a step forward, her eyes not leaving his. Her voice, when it came, was soft yet laced with urgency, almost as if she had been waiting for him. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her tone heavy with both fear and determination. "You've seen too much." Alex blinked in confusion. "I'm just here for maintenance. I was assigned to this station." Her face hardened and she cut him off. "No, you don't understand. You've seen something you shouldn't have. Now you have to make a choice." Alex frowned, trying to process what she was saying. What did she mean by, "I've seen too much"? He had seen nothing but the routine machinery of the space station, nothing out of the ordinary, but something in her eyes told him that she wasn't lying. What choice? Alex asked, feeling a sense of dread slowly creeping up his spine. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he couldn't back out now. The alien princess lowered her gaze for a brief moment before meeting his eyes again, her expression shifting to one of deep sadness. "I am Seraphina, the princess of a distant galaxy. My family, they have rules, customs, and you've broken them by seeing me." Alex's heart skipped a beat as the implications of her words sank in. "I don't understand. I didn't mean to." "You have no choice," she interrupted, her voice now trembling with emotion. "My family is merciless. If they find out you saw me, they will kill you. There's only one way to save yourself." Alex's mind raced, trying to make sense of everything she was saying. His thoughts were a blur of confusion and fear. Why would her family want to kill him? What had he seen that was so dangerous? The princess took a deep breath, steadying herself before continuing. "Marry me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Marry me, and you will be safe. My family won't harm you if you agree to this." Alex stared at her in disbelief. Marry her? This was all too much, too sudden. He was a simple technician, a man who lived his life by the rules, doing his job, staying out of trouble. Now this alien princess was asking him to marry her to save his life? "I don't even know you," Alex said, his voice shaky. How? Can I just marry you? Serafina's eyes filled with tears as she stepped closer, her face softening with a mix of sorrow and determination. I know it's hard to understand, but it's the only way. If you don't, my family will come for you, and they won't show mercy. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, suffocating Alex. His mind raced with questions, but none of them made sense. Who was this woman? Why was she in danger? And why him? He had never been a part of something so extraordinary. I don't want to die, Alex whispered, his voice breaking under the pressure. But I don't know if I can do this. Serafina's gaze softened. Please, she pleaded. I don't want to force you, but I have no choice. You've seen too much. Marry me and we can face the future together. The room grew quiet as Alex stood there, torn between the impossible choice before him. Marry this alien princess and risk everything, or refuse and face a deadly fate. His heart raced as he weighed the options, knowing that whatever decision he made would change the course of his life forever. And as he looked into her eyes, he couldn't help but feel that his life was no longer just his own. It had become something much bigger, something he couldn't yet fully comprehend. Alex stood there, frozen in place, staring at Serafina as the weight of her words sank in. The quiet hum of the space station seemed to fade into the background, the oppressive silence only broken by the sound of his own racing heartbeat. The alien princess with her glowing eyes and ethereal presence was asking him to marry her, not out of love but out of necessity, a desperate plea for survival. His mind was a blur, questions swirling with no answers in sight. I can't just marry you, Alex stammered, his voice shaky. I don't even know you. This is all too much. I don't understand why you're asking me for this. Serafina's gaze softened, and for the first time, Alex saw the vulnerability hidden beneath her regal exterior. She took a step forward, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't choose this. I didn't want to drag you into my world, she said, her tone filled with a mix of sorrow and frustration. But my family, they are ruthless. They rule over entire galaxies with iron fists. I had no choice but to come here. And now you've seen too much. If you don't marry me, they will kill you without hesitation. Alex's head spun. He tried to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions, the reality of the situation closing in around him. He was just a technician, a man who had no business being caught up in a galactic struggle. But somehow he was now standing at the center of an interstellar conflict, and his choices seemed to be narrowing with every passing second. I don't understand, Alex said, his voice strained. Why me? Why not someone else? I'm not important. I don't have anything to offer. Serafina's eyes met his, filled with a mix of fear and resolve. Because you're the only one who's seen me. You're the only one who knows the truth. My family would never allow such a secret to survive. They are powerful, beyond what you can imagine. You've walked into their world, Alex, and they won't let you walk out unless you follow their rules. A cold shiver ran down Alex's spine. He had no idea what he was dealing with, what kind of power this alien family held over the galaxy. The idea of marriage, of being forced into a life he never imagined, felt surreal. He was no hero. He was just a man trying to survive in a universe that seemed far bigger and more dangerous than he ever realized. But as the silence stretched between them, Alex could feel the tension building. Serafina was waiting for him to make a decision, and the clock was ticking. Her family's reach extended far beyond this station, far beyond this planet, and time was running out. I need time to think, Alex said, trying to steady his breath. This is too much to process. I don't even know where to begin. Serafina shook her head, her expression one of pain and urgency. There's no time, Alex. My family will come for us soon. They've already sensed something is wrong. If you don't agree, they will destroy you, and they will destroy anyone who stands in their way. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Alex's mind raced as he tried to grasp the enormity of the situation. His life was no longer his own. He was caught in the middle of something far beyond his understanding, something that could cost him everything. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway outside the room. Alex froze, his heart pounding. Serafina's eyes widened in alarm, and she quickly stepped toward him, her hand reaching out to grasp his arm. "They're here," she whispered, her voice tinged with panic. "They've found us." The door to the room slid open, and two figures in dark, sleek armor stepped inside. They were tall, their faces hidden behind helmets, and their movements were fluid, almost unnatural. Alex could feel the air grow cold. As they entered, their presence oppressive and intimidating. Serafina stood her ground, her posture stiff with fear and defiance. "Leave us," she commanded, her voice laced with authority, though there was a tremor in it. The figures didn't respond, their eyes fixed on her with unwavering coldness. "You know the rules, princess," one of them said, his voice mechanical and emotionless. "You have no choice. Your family is waiting." Alex glanced at Serafina, her face pale with fear. Her family's power was tangible, and the reality of the situation hit him harder than ever. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were sent to enforce her family's will, and they wouldn't hesitate to carry out their orders. Serafina's eyes flickered with desperation, and she turned to Alex, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is it. They won't stop until they get what they want. You have to decide now." Alex felt trapped, the walls closing in on him. He had no idea what kind of power these beings wielded, but he knew one thing for sure. His life was at stake. The decision weighed heavily on him. Marry Serafina, save his life, and face an uncertain future, or refuse and risk everything. The two soldiers stepped forward, their presence like a storm looming over them. Serafina's hand tightened on Alex's arm, and she looked at him one last time. "Please," she pleaded, "don't make me lose you." Alex took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The danger was real. Her family was coming, and he was running out of time. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, the door slid open once again, and more figures emerged, their faces hidden in shadow. This was no longer just about him and Serafina. It was a battle between life and death, love and survival. The seconds seemed to stretch into eternity. Alex's heart raced, his mind spinning with the weight of the decision he had to make. Serafina's grip on his arm tightened, her eyes filled with pleading desperation. The soldiers who had entered the room stood silent, their imposing figures, a constant reminder of the deadly forces he was up against. They were sent by her family, the family that could destroy him in an instant with no remorse. Alex's mind flashed back to the quiet life he had lived before this, before the stars had pulled him into a war between worlds. He was just a technician, someone who fixed things, not someone who was meant to be part of something so grand, so dangerous. The alien princess standing in front of him, with her glowing eyes and ethereal beauty, was offering him something he never imagined he would be asked to accept. A chance to marry her, to save his life. He looked at her, his throat dry. I don't know if I can do this," he whispered, his voice hoarse with uncertainty. "Marrying you, it's not just about me. It's about your entire world, your family. I'm not ready for something like this. I'm not prepared for the consequences." Serafina's eyes softened with understanding, but there was a deep sadness there too. She had known this would be hard. She had known that asking someone like Alex to marry her, someone from a completely different world, was asking the impossible, but she had no other choice. "I never wanted this," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I never wanted to drag you into this, Alex. But you don't understand. My family will never stop until they have what they want. If you don't marry me, they will destroy you, and they will destroy anyone who stands in their way." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. He had known the stakes were high, but hearing it in those terms, hearing the cold, hard truth, was almost too much to bear. Alex felt trapped, suffocated by the enormity of the situation. He was caught between his desire to survive and his fear of losing himself in a world that wasn't his own. The soldiers, who had been watching silently, shifted slightly, as if they were growing impatient. Alex could feel their eyes on him, waiting for him to make a decision. He had no time. There was no time to think, no time to process. The decision had to be made now. His life, Serafina's life, and the future of both their worlds rested on his shoulders. He turned to Serafina, his eyes filled with confusion and fear. "I don't know what to do," he admitted. "This is all so overwhelming. I'm just one man. How can I possibly change everything for you? For your family?" Serafina's hand gently cupped his face, her touch surprisingly tender. "You don't have to change everything, Alex. You just have to stand by me. Together we can break the rules that my family has built their empire on. Together we can fight for a different future, a future where I can be free, and where you don't have to live in fear." Her words pierced through his doubt like a beacon of light. The thought of standing beside her, of being part of something greater than himself, sparked a flicker of hope inside him. But there was still fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the consequences. What if his choice was the wrong one? What if it led to destruction, not just for him, but for Serafina as well? "I don't know if I can handle this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never been a hero. I'm just a guy who fixes things. I don't know how to fight wars, how to lead." Serafina smiled softly, her eyes full of warmth. "You don't have to be a hero, Alex. You just have to be with me. That's enough." The soldiers moved a step closer, their presence a stark reminder of the limited time Alex had. The air in the room grew heavier with every passing second. The reality of the situation pressed down on him like a weight he couldn't escape. They would not wait much longer. In that moment, Alex realized something. He wasn't making this decision just for himself. He was making it for Serafina too. She had asked for his help not because she needed a savior, but because she needed someone to stand by her. The strength to face her family, to challenge the rules that had bound her for so long, didn't have to come from a powerful army or royal bloodlines. It just had to come from two people who were willing to fight for something better. His heart pounded as he stepped closer to her, taking her hand in his. The room seemed to fade away, and for the first time, Alex felt a sense of peace. It wasn't a perfect decision, and it wasn't a decision he had ever thought he would make, but it was a decision he could live with. "I'll do it," he said, his voice firm. "I'll marry you, Serafina, but not because I'm afraid, and not because I have no choice. I'll marry you because I believe in the future we can have together. And I'll stand by you, no matter what comes." Tears welled up in Serafina's eyes as she looked at him, her expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't know what this means to me. To us." Alex felt a weight lift off his shoulders as the decision was made. But even as he stood there holding her hand, he knew that this was only the beginning. There would be no going back. They would have to face everything together, the wrath of her family, the dangers that lay ahead. But in that moment, as he looked into her eyes, he knew one thing for certain. They would face it together. The moments after Alex had made his decision felt like a turning point in both his life and Serafina's. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about standing together against all odds and choosing to forge a future built on love and defiance. But as they held hands, an uneasy silence settled between them. There was no going back now. Their futures were now tied together, and Serafina's family wasn't a force they could ignore. The soldiers standing in the doorway didn't move. Their silent presence loomed over the couple, like shadows waiting to pounce. The air felt thick, and the tension was palpable. Alex could feel the weight of Serafina's family pressing on him, a pressure that seemed to suffocate the very space they were standing in. He had made his choice, but what did it mean? Could love really protect them? Would they ever truly be free? "Take her," one of the soldiers finally spoke, his voice cold and commanding, breaking the silence. "The royal family awaits." Alex's heart raced as he turned to look at Serafina. Her face, once filled with desperation, now held a certain calmness. Her decision, her future, had been set in motion. But she wasn't the same person she had been just hours ago. The weight of her family's expectations had been heavy on her shoulders, but with Alex by her side, a new strength had emerged. She wasn't going to let them control her anymore. "No," Serafina said firmly, stepping forward, her voice strong despite the danger. "You cannot take me. I will not go back to them, not without Alex." The soldiers exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their cold eyes. They had never seen the princess stand against her family like this. The reality of her words hit them harder than Alex had expected. They weren't just dealing with an alien princess. They were dealing with a woman who had taken her destiny into her own hands. Alex, despite the overwhelming fear building within him, stepped closer to Serafina. He had made a promise, and now it was time to face the consequences. "We're leaving," he said, his voice growing more confident with each word. "We'll face whatever comes, together." Serafina looked at him, her eyes shimmering with admiration. She had never imagined she'd find someone willing to fight by her side. And now, here he was, standing with her, ready to defy everything she had known. It wasn't just about survival, anymore. It was about standing up for what was right. The soldiers moved, their armor gleaming in the low light as if preparing for a confrontation. One of them stepped forward, his hand reaching for his weapon. "You will regret this, princess," he growled. "The punishment for defying the royal family is death." Alex's breath caught in his throat. This was it. The final moment when everything would either fall apart or come together. The stakes couldn't be higher. He wasn't just risking his life anymore, he was risking Serafina's life too. But in that moment, Alex realized something. He wasn't just afraid of dying. What terrified him more was the idea of living a life where he had never made a choice that truly mattered. He had been content with his quiet life, never questioning his place in the world. But now, as he stood beside Serafina, he knew that he had to choose to fight, not just for her, but for his own future as well. "I don't care about the consequences," Alex said, his voice unwavering. "I'll face them all if it means we get to choose our own fate." Serafina turned to him, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. She had known the risks, but hearing those words from him filled her with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. For the first time, she felt as though she wasn't alone in this battle. They were partners now, not just in love, but in everything that lay ahead. The soldiers hesitated. The tension in the room grew thick, and for a brief moment Alex thought they might back down. But that hope was quickly dashed as one of the soldiers raised his weapon, aiming directly at Alex. "You will not leave this place alive," he hissed. Alex's heart skipped a beat, but before he could react, Serafina moved quickly, stepping in front of him. Her voice rang out, firm and commanding. "Stop." The soldier faltered for a moment, caught off guard by her sudden defiance. And then, something incredible happened. The room seemed to shift as though the very atmosphere had changed. Serafina stood taller, her presence more powerful than ever before. "I am the princess of this galaxy," she declared, her voice echoing through the station, "and I refuse to let my family control me any longer. If you want to fight, then fight. But know this, I will never go back to them." There was a brief moment of silence. The soldiers stood motionless as if considering her words. And then, one of them spoke again, his voice quieter now. "You are no longer our princess, Serafina. You have chosen your own fate." With that, the soldiers backed off, slowly retreating toward the door. They weren't retreating in fear. They were retreating in acceptance of Serafina's decision. They were no longer her enemies, but neither were they her allies. They were simply soldiers, following the rules they had always known. Alex stood there, stunned, as he watched them leave. The weight of what had just happened hit him all at once. He had just faced down a group of deadly warriors, and somehow, they had walked away. It wasn't the victory he had imagined, but it was a victory nonetheless. He and Serafina had defied her family, and together, they had won. As the door closed behind the soldiers, Alex turned to Serafina. "Is it over?" he asked. still not fully understanding what had just transpired. Serafina nodded, her eyes glistening with tears, but there was no fear in them now, only strength. "It's just the beginning," she whispered. "We've taken the first step toward a new future, a future where we make our own choices." And as Alex looked into her eyes, he knew she was right. Their journey was far from over. There would be more battles to face, more dangers to confront. But they would face them together, and that was all that mattered.